Hello, everybody. Welcome to whatever this is going to turn out to be. I had an idea a little while ago of basically going, we're coming up to Valentine's Day. Everybody is preparing to be lovey-dovey and sweet and innocent and wholesome for all of their friends or people who they care about most. Or if you're single, there's Singles Appreciation Day. But the idea that I had of going, I need to catch up on my Halloween stuff that I have set up and run previously, and we had a number of games that we unlocked for me to play. And this year, or this month, is going to be the time that I tackle Dead Space 2, if you couldn't tell. I then got to thinking, well, since we're doing this weird juxtaposition thing of, one extreme to the other, what are people's favorite version of thriller or horror or an element in sci-fi that may not necessarily be the focus of that genre, but it is encapsulated in a couple of episodes that may have potentially just caught your attention and made you think, oh wow, that is something else. And then they take care of it over there. So I've asked a couple of friends if they would be down to having a bit of an interview style questionnaire thing. I don't know. Maybe keep that in the edit or not. I don't know. Anyway, so I have a couple of friends with me today who I'm going to start the ball rolling. And this will turn into a bit of a series in relation to what's their best, their favorite, etc. And kind of what got the madness started. So, ta-da, the magic of editing and a slight cut later. And I have my dear friend Swift Arrow here, who I've met through a mutual set of friends, and they do a series on, not a series, but they do an event set on VRChat and such, which is called Hunts. You may have heard of them, you may not. The idea that I have asked Swift to explain to me, because it didn't make sense in my brain, of what they are, and it's mainly scare performance and scare acting, like you would get in a haunted house or a Halloween village that you would get to, that you often see on YouTube Shorts or wherever that you tend to find them. Is that accurate?
That's a pretty accurate statement, I would say, yeah.
Okay. So people who want to have a little bit more blood flowing through their veins than would normally be possible. Thank you, heart rate. And the initial part that I had on here was obviously, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Do you do any content creation? Is that something you've stepped into, or what keeps you going now?
Yeah, so I did do a little bit of content creation back in the day. I dabbled in the TikTok, YouTube, just a little bit, but that never really took off because I always felt like I was just chasing the same thing that everybody else was and was using the same sounds. So it's just like, it's not creative enough, So, I also tried Twitch. I hit affiliate, and then, I hit a bit of a burnout. And due to two major factors. One is just kept playing the same thing over and over and over, and it kind of started feeling a little more like a chore. So there's that. But then also my PC, not exactly the best it's not exactly well equipped to handle.
Are we saying that's like 7+ years old at the moment? I know I talked about this the other day, and it's getting its use.
It's the PC I have right now was just a bunch of spare parts a friend had lying around that they were just like, here, you need to get away from this really crappy laptop that you've been running for the past, I think it was 10 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
At that point. So to put it into perspective, the boot time on that laptop was like 5-10 minutes.
Oh,
it was struggle busting.
Mm-hmm.
So they put me this PC together, and I've been running it ever since, but the parts are dated. Needless to say, the CPU is from 2016. So it's doing its best. It's doing pretty well for.
I mean, you're definitely making sure it does its best, because I've seen some of the Unity projects you work on. Obviously, is this all your own texture work and stuff like that? I know you have multiple different characters you run around with in various different hunts.
Yeah. So as far as texture go, I don't do my own textures. I do edits here and there, like the blood layer. The blood on this right now is my own work, but the base texture itself is not.
Okay. Alrighty.
And that's kind of where I do my avatar stuff is I'll take something, and if I like it enough, and I'll use it as its base. But more often than not, especially recently, I have been dissecting and editing assets and particle systems and whatnot to create effects that I want.
Awesome. Alrighty. So there is that element. I mean, I notice you've got the little flying. I don't know if it's a death bug or the little moth of doom,
it's called a death moth.
It's okay. Cool. It's straight up called a death moth. I wasn't far wrong. Okay, good to know I'm in the right genre. So part of the thing that I initially started thinking about is what got people initially into the horror or the thriller scene. Everybody's kind of had exposure to it at this point. I feel it's very difficult to get away from, especially in popular media or just media that you tend to consume. Some people will avoid it entirely. That's fine. You do you. What was your kind of exposure to thriller? What got you, if there was something in junior school or in elementary that you kind of read? I remember books like Goosebumps and stuff, which, yes, are meant for kids, but they were meant to be that little bit more of the irky variety itself as well. Or there was some spooky cartoon or Halloween special or something like that. What was yours?
So, if I had to really think back on it, my first exposure to anything thriller, horror related had to have been Resident Evil 4 on the PS2. I remember cousin bringing that over, and he played through the first quarter, maybe first half of it, while I kind of sat there and just watched him. Because while Resident Evil technically is supposed to be horror, I didn't really see the appeal to it, and it didn't really do anything to scare me. The body horror and everything like that in Resi 4 is pretty intense at times, but it wasn't anything too scary. But I would say my true introduction into horror and actually liking it would be Dead Space. That I remember a friend of mine, introducing me to it and trying to get me to play it. And again, same thing as Resi 4. I was like, I don't see the appeal, but I guess I could try it. Because he let me borrow the disc for the 360.
The days when physical games were more of a thing. Nowadays, it's all digital downloads, CD keys, etc. You had to queue in line to buy a physical small circle of plastic and shiny bits to plug it in.
It's sad that we have to explain that. But yes, friend let me borrow the game disc, and I promptly played it. Well, I want to say promptly, but I got around to playing it. But whenever I did, I ended up playing it at night with all the fucking lights off.
As horror should be experienced.
Teenage me got the shit scared out of them, especially during that opening scene, and I was hooked after that. Not only was the gameplay very different from the normal shooters that I was familiar with, the story definitely was there, even in the basics of what they were able to tell in the original.
And at least
that's my introduction to it.
Yeah, from the original stories, like they still told an amazing story, which is why we got a remake so many years later. But like they did the best of what they could at the time, and at least nowadays, from having played the remaster and watching other people play the original, again, they were able to tell so much more story with more tools that they were able to then utilize at the time, having a really strong base.
That's what I love about the remake. They had an amazing baseline, and they just added on top of it. Can't get better than that.
Yeah, and this is in no way like hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread because I'm playing, Dead Space. It just happens to be that I played the original, the original remaster, the Dead Space 1 remaster. I played it on stream probably about a year ago now, and I fell in love with it. The sound design was amazing. Obviously, the graphical overhaul was much needed because it is a dated game if you look at the originals, but the core story elements are all there.
The original has pretty phenomenal graphics. Like, for what they did back in the day, it still holds up even nowadays.
This kind of may have already been answered, but like, obviously, what is your core memory of like that thriller horror space? Was it that Dead Space, like playing it, etc.? Okay.
Because I finished Dead Space 1, and Dead Space 2 and 3 were already out at this point. So I was like, okay, I want to dive more into this. So I bought Dead Space 2, played through that, got Dead Space 3, told my friend I had it because, Dead Space 3 is cooperative, and we played through that together. Our initial playthrough was a raw playthrough, but after that, he did end up, because he'd been playing 3 for a lot longer than I had, of course. He ended up, for consecutive playthroughs, he introduced me to the weapons that he had crafted and that he had built. And unfortunately, even on the hardest difficulty, his weapons made it easy mode because of how overpowered some of those weapon combinations can get.
And then this is a bit of a fun one that I tried to throw in there, which was, what is your favorite universe where horror may or not be its core element? And bonus points for if it's a case of we deal with that way over there and the rest of the world carries on, but there's a very persistent threat that happens in a particular story arc or a storyline or something that spawned a story arc or storyline.
It's going to sound very, very cliche for those who know me, but I'm going to have to go with Destiny.
Okay.
Because first off, if you ever read the actual lore for the Hive and the general goings on, especially for current Destiny, you realize it can kind of be very grimdarky. Like, there is so much lore and backstory that unfortunately can't be touched on in game, that it just gets lost in the flavor texts and the side entries that are on the weapons and the armors and all that other stuff. Like, yeah, the game itself has its problems, but you can't deny that Bungie writes good stories.
And that's why there are so many compilations of people going through story arcs. Hello, my name is Bife is one that comes to my immediate lore, because I've sat there and watched 4 hours of backstory to Destiny.
Lore Daddy, for sure.
And he's not the only one to have done these deep dives or talked about all of these other pieces. People even super focused on one particular faction or a particular story arc that they particularly enjoyed. And I mean, to me, the whole thing of Osiris when he was taken over, and obviously, by the way, spoilers in case anybody still cares, when he was essentially possessed by Savathun or impersonated by Savathun, and I genuinely forget if he had the memories of being controlled and couldn't do anything about it, or just woke up with a blank slate.
Yeah. No, he was fully conscious under Savathun's control, but couldn't do anything about it.
And that, again, the whole locked-in horror syndrome and stuff like that, or locked-in syndrome being a massive core with that, like some other force is doing things, and you're just a passenger in the back. Again, elements of horror and thriller that kind of make you go, like, they're based on something primeval that sits in our brains that makes us just go, I don't want to be on this planet anymore. But then, where can you go? What other planet and what other universe do you want to go live in when there's going to be similar shenanigans, if not even worse? Bit of an interesting hop, skip, and a jump later. Don't worry, the shift in the perspective is totally fine. Last thing we were going to talk about is, obviously, if people want to come and find out more about the hunts, or for yourself, if they want to potentially hire you. I don't know if you are available for hire for some of the texture work and the modifications you've done, but if they want to, where can they find you?
Yeah. I don't take commissions. I've never even considered that, to be honest. But no, if they want to find out more about hunts and potentially be a part of it, or just want to come see what they're about, they can join either Kindred or MidnightScales. Kindred is a lot smaller scaled, because we're a small community. We're just having fun, really. But we still keep things relatively professional. MidnightScales is a much bigger community, and they also do a lot more events than just hunts. So, I'll give you the contact info for you to put in the description for both of those. As far as me personally, again, not really done any content creation as of late. Might get back into it, especially with the upgrades now, but we'll see.
Which will be handy again, as well.
Yes.
Cool.
Same name everywhere, really.
Perfect.
It's just Swift_Arrow.
Alrighty then. So, ladies and beans, of those of you who have stuck around with us itself as well, including the impromptu scene switch, don't worry about it. If you'd like to leave us your favorite extra world that has kind of had a lot more lore behind it, such as Destiny or the Flood in Halo and stuff like that, please let me know in the comments below. I know that there's a bunch of universes out there that I've probably only seen the surface of, but would love to know more. Leaving me the information. Come say hi, do the whole subscribe thing and all this other fun stuff. I will be releasing these throughout February and beyond, hopefully as well. So I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.